What's up, guys? As the light keeps bouncing off my bald head here, 1-1 in the NFL, 3-3 in football overall. The 1-1 in the NFL was a slight win because the Browns cashed on the money line, even though I was on a worse number than what it ended up. I think I had plus 265 on the money line or something. It wound up like plus 345 or something like that. I missed out on the best numbers there. Browns were still like the right side the whole way. That was good. San Francisco, of course, lost Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel in the game, which did certainly affect the game a bit, but I don't think it really affected the spread outcome. That was just a defensive battle, a low-scoring game. Cleveland tried to throw it away. P.J. Walker made one really bad mistake fairly late in the game. I believe he turned it over in his own territory, inside his own 10, I think, pretty late, and that was right after Cleveland had a big play while they had the lead that looked like it was going to get them to midfield or maybe even past midfield. Called back for an ineligible receiver downfield. Then Walker turns it over right after that. I'm like, oh, here we go. San Francisco, I believe, scored a touchdown because of that. Right after that, they scored, took the lead, but then Cleveland was able to win. They were able to take the lead, get a field goal right near the end, do it, and then San Francisco missed a makeable field goal, makeable but long, in the 40-something yard range at the end there. Wild ending. One thing I didn't realize, it was pointed out to me shortly before the game happened, was that Kyle Shanahan is also really bad against Jim Schwartz defenses. I think he's now 1-9 against them lifetime, so that's crazy. So Jim Schwartz continues to have his number and know how to stop his offenses, which is wild. So that trend continued as well, which is crazy. The Colts game did not fare well, not so much. I still think that my handicap was right on that one. The Colts outgained the Jaguars by 120-something yards, although most of it was through the air because the Colts were down and they had to abandon the run, even though with Jonathan Taylor back, his second game back, I think that's kind of one of their strengths at this point. I liked the fact that Gardner Minshew was in there because he was facing the team that got rid of him, basically, and replaced him with Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville. I think this was his first time starting against Jacksonville, against the team that ditched him. He threw for 300-something yards in the air, I think, but turned it over 3 times, and that was the difference in the game. 3 interceptions, bad mistakes from Minshew, and one of them was really key in the red zone late in the game when the Colts were within a score, and that may have been the difference in the spread outcome, the red zone interception that he threw. Bad. I still like the handicap on that one. What can you do? We looked at tonight, Monday Night Football, Dallas at Chargers. This is still a really difficult read to make. I don't even know what my pick is going to be because I have to pick all the games in the pick'em pools. Dallas is they're down a little bit, somewhere around a 1.5 favorite. Of course, the last time we saw them, they got crushed on primetime by the 49ers last week, which you might say, well, they're coming out of an embarrassing game, so they might turn it around if they come off of a game that embarrassing. But that was also a big game where they had to put in a big effort, at least initially, and it was a big emotional effort, and then you have that emotional crash down. So I could see it going both ways as far as how they react to it coming into this game. This is a road out-of-conference game for Dallas, which is the least important game on a team's schedule, although when you're coming off an ugly-looking loss, and it is a primetime game, that might be less of a factor. You still might be focused for that. The Chargers are coming out of a bye, but the bye might actually work counter to them, work against them, because I think they won 2 games going into the bye, so the bye could be more of a killer of momentum there. But also, it's Monday night. Even for both teams, it's going to be they're still going to be motivated. Chargers get the big name team Dallas coming in, so it's not like the Chargers are going to be unmotivated there. And then there might be a question as far as what the makeup of the fans in the crowd is going to look like. The Chargers, I don't believe they tend to have that strong of a home field in LA, home field advantage. And Dallas, I think, is certainly going to travel quite a bit because they're such a popular team. So you could see quite a mix there. You could see the home field edge not be as significant for the Chargers, but maybe that's being factored into the line too. I don't even know if I would lean one way or the other right now on this, even though I'm going to have to by game time. The market looks like it's 53% of the tickets and the cash. Let me look. Both on the Chargers right now. I don't know how much to read into that either, really. Who knows? Don't have much to say about that otherwise. We go to Major League Baseball. We're in the CSs here. Both conference. Why do I keep saying conference? Because of the C. Championship Series. Both league championship series continue. Texas won last night. Jordan Montgomery with a really good performance last night for Texas. They shut out Houston, which is not easy to do. Texas had to use like Aroldis Chapman in the back end of their bullpen, though. So both teams didn't really use their bullpen very heavily in that game, so it might be a little bit of a wash, although Texas did have to use their closer and such to finish off that game. So I would my preference would be Houston's bullpen slightly in that one. And in the starting pitching matchup, I think Houston also has an advantage. Nathan Eovaldi is pitching for Texas. I don't know about his big game experience here, but this year he's pitched 2 playoff games and been really good with 15 Ks and no walks in 13 and 2/3 innings, which is crazy, and only allowed 2 earned runs. One was against Tampa, but the other was against Baltimore, who does have a good offense. But even so, I don't know how much I trust Eovaldi. His lifetime stats against Houston in a lot of at-bats, 145 at-bats, 310 opponent batting average is not good at all, very high. Houston has done well against him in 27 Ks and 16 walks, also not good, and 11 home runs allowed. None of that is good. Eovaldi's stats are not good against Houston, and he is coming off a couple of big games, so it's possible there might be a little bit of regression there. Whereas on the other side, you have Framber Valdez, who I have argued might be the best starter on Houston. His numbers have been good, even though his win-loss record doesn't look very good this year. I think he got screwed. I don't even know, but apparently he got screwed as far as how much run support he got this year, because I don't know how you have a 3.45 ERA and 1.13 WHIP on the season and only go 12-11 record-wise. That's kind of crazy to me. Seemingly he did not have very good run support, but he's coming off a bad outing, which was his first outing in the playoffs this year, so it's possible there were some adjustment factors going on there because he didn't do well. He gave up 5 earned runs in 4 1/3 against Minnesota, who doesn't really have a good offense. He struggled, and that was the one game Houston lost to Minnesota, and I actually won on that game last Sunday, I believe is when that was. So yay for me, I guess. But Framber Valdez, he could be in a position to bounce back a bit, whereas you might get a little bit of a regression from Eovaldi, even though he has pitched well this year. Eovaldi's stats, not good against Houston. Valdez's stats, not as bad against Texas in 187 at-bats, 251 OBA, and 38-18 KBB ratio. So, strikeout-walk ratio. So Valdez only allowed 4 home runs, which is quite good. So Valdez has been better against Texas than Eovaldi has been against Houston. I think we get the edge bullpen-wise and starting pitcher-wise. Both go to Houston a little bit, but on the number, it looks like Houston has gone down from -160 to 118 on the money line, which I don't get that really. I don't really understand that move. I don't know if the 160 is really where it opened. But I also see 56% of the tickets on Texas, but 55% of the cash on Houston. With those edges in the pitching that Houston has, I think that's the only way that I could lean there. There's no way that I could put money on Eovaldi with how bad his stats are against Houston. So I would just stay away. But the slight lean would be to Houston there, just because of those pitching edges that I believe they have. But I don't understand, even though it looks like more of the money than the tickets are on Houston in the market, I don't understand why the number looks like it's gone down so much on Houston. Whatever. And then the other game, the NLCS starts with Arizona at Philly. Crazy that Arizona has made it this far. Philly's a -160 favorite. It looks like they have 78% of the tickets and 88% of the cash. So there might be some money coming in on Philly, potentially. I don't know exactly. This one is hard to read as well. Zach Gallen is pitching for Arizona. He's one of their best starters, one of their two, I would say. Him and Kelly are really the two trustworthy starters on the team. He's been good against Philly, lifetime 232 OBA in 69 at bats. Nice. Not bad for Gallon, and he's struggled a little bit in the playoffs, though. Earned run-wise, he's been okay, allowing 2 earned runs in both of his starts against fairly tough offenses in Milwaukee and the Dodgers, but strikeout walk ratio not very good. 8 strikeouts and 5 walks in 11 and a third total. Hasn't gone that deep into these games and has been putting too many people on base and not blowing enough of them away. So you don't like to see that really, but his 230 whatever OBA lifetime against the Phillies is pretty good. And Zach Wheeler for the Phillies, his numbers are actually worse against Arizona. 276 OBA lifetime and 98 at bats. That's not good. He's been hit around a bit, even though strikeout walk ratio, 25 strikeouts, 7 walks. That's not bad. And he's been good in the playoffs this year. 18 strikeouts and 1 walk in 13 innings. Crazy. He had 10 strikeouts against the Braves, even though the Phillies actually lost that game. I think that was the one game in the series they lost. They lost by 1 run there, but he's only allowed 3 earned runs in the 2 starts. One of them was against Miami, who was not very good offensively, but Atlanta really is. So impressive start against Atlanta. Again, like neither of these games are easy to read. I don't know how I would read this. I don't know which way I would go here. Wheeler, his stats are significantly worse, I would say, against Arizona's hitters than Gallon's are against Philly. So I might have the slight lean to Arizona there because Philly is obviously seen as the better team. They do have the experience, and I should have mentioned Houston also has more experience, but now Texas does have a game against them under their belts in the series, so that might help Texas a little bit there, even though I would only lean to Houston in that one. Philly does have the experience edge here, but pitching-wise and value-wise, I think everybody knows Philly is the better team, so it's going to be tough to say that you can actually get value on Philly when they have the known starter. Like people think he's the better starter. Season, like stats-wise, Wheeler and Gallon pretty close in stats, but as I said, Gallon's stats are better against Philly than Wheeler's are against Arizona, and Gallon has struggled in the playoffs, but that could mean he might bounce back a little bit, and Wheeler could possibly regress a little bit because he is coming off of such a big start against the Braves where he had really good strikeout numbers. Great start in that one for him, even though they did lose that game as well. I don't know. That's tough to read. Probably there'd be a little bit of value maybe on Arizona, I would say, just because of Gallon having been pretty good against Philly and possibly being in a little bit of a bounce back. But experience might trump that. I don't really know. So that one's really tough. If we go to the NHL, and I guess I'll mention, because I mentioned in one of the comments on my videos, last you saw with me in the NHL, man, I'm 0-2 in the NHL. Not good, even though my leans in the NHL have been good. I gave out leans on both of the NHL games yesterday. Those both won outright. Even the Ducks beat Carolina outright. Just like really crazy. And Ottawa had a pretty easy win as well. But 0-2 in my bets. I think the Calgary one, I still think I was not really on the wrong side of that. Calgary was winning against Pittsburgh 1-0 into the third period, and then they had this lapse, and it just kind of unraveled. You can see NHL teams can have these like quick bursts of scoring, and that's what happened there. Calgary had this like defensive and goaltending lapse, and all of a sudden they were just losing by multiple goals where they were winning by 1 shortly before that. They wound up allowing an empty net at the end, which made it look even worse. But Calgary outshot Pittsburgh, and it was, like I said, it was a game where they were winning into the third period, so it's not like they were in desperation mode for a majority of the game and taking like desperation shots because they were behind. That didn't happen until later in the game, so Calgary, I think, did outplay them. They outshot Pittsburgh, and they out-face-offed them and had somewhere in the neighborhood of 54-55% of the face-offs won, so I don't know. Calgary played well enough to win that game, man. That's all I can say about that. Calgary, I'm not going to talk about this one really, but Calgary has a game against Washington today. One of the games that is a little bit more interesting, I would say, because Calgary's gone down from a -110 to a -109 favorite. It looks like it just slightly ticked down. 50% of the tickets on Calgary, but 91% of the money on Washington. In my read here on the pregame board that I'm looking at here. I don't know how totally accurate it is, but it seems to work well for me, better than any other free tool, like I've mentioned before. It's a kind of a weird spot because Calgary just lost at Pittsburgh. Like I said, Washington just lost at home to Pittsburgh. So, and Calgary, as I say that, they just ticked up to minus 113. Who knows? It's just interesting because they both had the same opponent in their last game. Washington got blown out at home by Pittsburgh, and Calgary lost on the road at Pittsburgh, and that loss looks worse than it actually was. The market sort of is indicating on Washington. Washington hasn't won a game yet, but I don't know for sure on that one. It's a little bit tough to read, but people might think that Washington's loss looks worse because they got shut out at home, whereas Calgary lost on the road to Pittsburgh. So people might think, and people might think Calgary's even the better team. I don't even really know, which they are, as the books are telling you. They're the road favorite. Washington not expected to be that good this year, but who knows? I would lean Washington. The actual play I'm making here is going to be on the Columbus Blue Jackets. I took them at plus 105 as an underdog, I believe, a home underdog. I like the spot here. This is against the Detroit Red Wings, who definitely have that name recognition, that, I don't know what else to say about that history behind them. 78% of the tickets, but only 72% of the cash on Detroit. And they're sitting around like a minus 120 or so favorite here. Road favorite. What we have here, neither team played yesterday, but I think Detroit is in kind of a sandwich. I don't think it's a good spot for them because they just won against the Tampa Bay Lightning. 6-4. Tampa Bay, team that can definitely score. Good team. But what people don't really think of that much, and I feel like a broken record because I harp on it, Vasilevsky, their really good goaltender, has been out. So that's been affecting Tampa. So they've given, you could score against Tampa for sure. So that makes that like win by Detroit look a little bit less good, a little bit less crazy. But that is a big win for them, like in their minds for sure. They beat a good Tampa team that can score. People are going to see that. That looks good. Next up, Detroit has Pittsburgh. And in between those two, they won at home against Tampa. And now, even though it's a short trip, when you win a game like that at home, and that was their first game at home, you don't want to immediately go on the road and disrupt that momentum. And that's what they have to do. They have to go to Columbus. And Columbus is kind of a team in hockey. Nobody really pays attention to them, even though they've been in the playoffs some of the time. But they could just be overlooked when you're coming off a big win like that, high-scoring game over Tampa, and then you have Pittsburgh, who's another big name, of course, up next. You could overlook Columbus, and that's what I like here. So I'm looking at the Columbus Blue Jackets to be the value side here with that money line. Columbus has stayed at home. They've been at home the whole time so far. And they beat the Rangers, so they are coming off like a pretty good win as well. But that could be more of a game. That was their first win after they were 0-1. Lost to Philly at home, which is not a great way to start the season. The fact that they beat New York, you could see it as a big win, but I don't think they're going to be unfocused when they have the Detroit Red Wings coming to town, even just based on the name alone. So I don't think they're going to be really in like a letdown mode here, and they're the underdog at home. So I think there is value there. And that win could be like sort of like a momentum starter, really, like riding the ship after you had a loss in the first game. Now you won a game, you got that first win under your belt. Now you can kind of focus on hockey and not worry about getting that first win. So that's the actual play. Columbus Blue Jackets plus 105. Peace.